All right. Just gonna make sure. All right, I got a live stream on Instagram here. All right. Well, that's working. I'm a little concerned about my computer here because I'm tapping into the public library. I'm outside and normally it works, but I've never tried with Zoom and YouTube, so I'm not sure if it's too much, but I'm gonna double check here. Someone jumps on and they could definitely do a sound check for me. And okay, come on. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna check in with my ride or die, and I'm gonna have her check the IMCTV YouTube. All right, I'm putting this on pause. Instagram. Mhm. All right, send her the link. Simplify, because you know what's funny? Um, all right, well, it shows I'm live here on my phone, so that's good. I suppose I could check it myself too. All right. Oh, who's that handsome looking fellow? Oh, wait, that's me. Okay. Sound check 1, 2. Microphone is on me. Yep. Hmm. And I tell you what, you may not like the way you look or sound at first, but once you learn how to love yourself and get used to it, oh man, it's a beautiful thing. It's like your best friend. Um, it's like you love your inner child. It just keeps getting better, but you must first learn how to do it, believe you can do it, and then apply it every day. Because right now is a really good time to do it. Last night, oh my gosh, beyond clarity, it was under 20 minutes. I was kind of beating myself up about it because I cut it short. I was like, wait a minute, you know what? That's like long compared to what I used to do. Like, I couldn't even like focus for a minute. So 20 minutes, cannot minimize Zoom when you're recording this meeting. Okay, cool. All right, gonna double check Telegram. Uh, let me do that. Okay. Okay. Mm, okay, I'm just not gonna sit here and not say anything because and that's the beauty of technology too. Like after the recording, all you gotta do is skip ahead. So okay, Gregory Matthews. Just seeing someone recently joined my Beyond Clarity, and I'm just kind of curious where they came from. Sir Kenny Simmons, welcome. One of the IMC Nation 4 Pillars of Power OGs, and he will be hosting possibly next Saturday. We're gonna change the time to a little bit later, so we all can host, and hopefully, last time we changed it. So I'm gonna exit out of Telegram. How's the sound, Kenny?
It's clear. I can hear you clear.
Good. Just give me a thumbs up. I can't hear you. All right, live on Instagram, and so much better than last night. And this is going to be part 1 of how I quit Adderall, because I know. Well, the reason why I did part one last night because I had a pounding headache, and I almost didn't show up. But I'm like, you know what? F that. Keep showing up. Think about times in the past where you're in an even more uncomfortable situation, and you pull it through. So you know what? And shout out to my girl, my ride or die, messaged me, "Hey, when you coming over?" I'm like, "All right, let's do this." And another reason why I'm doing part one tonight is because there may be some things I leave out that I want to share in part two next time. And there may be some questions that will be asked for people who watch the recording, and then I can answer them in part two. So, well, I guess where did it start? Whew. Growing up a kid, it's funny, look up the picture. It's it's a picture of different animals and a tree. And one of the animals, a teacher, and it could be whatever animal you pick, but I picked a monkey. There's a monkey teacher pointing at the tree, and there's a giraffe, a rhinoceros, an alligator, um, and a hippo. And the monkey teacher tells the animal students, "Okay, everyone, climb this tree." So that's how I felt. Like I used to think growing up, I was slow. I had a learning disability because it seemed like everyone got it except me. I had a hard time concentrating, sitting still. Small town, small parochial school, like private Christian school. The town I grew up in was like less than 4,000 people. And there was a public school and a Christian parochial school, a little smaller, but part of the church. And my parents thinking, doing the right thing. My mom putting me in the Christian church, and it was funny because there were some not so Christian things going on there. I'm not going to mention any names, but one of the pastors would preach, do as I say, not as I do. And on the weekend, you see him dressed up at like a fancy bar slash diner and flirting with women, married man. Sometimes he get physical with his wife, get drunk. There was a couple there's a couple of grades. Like one teacher was married to the other. The male teacher in the higher grade was married to the teacher in the lower grade, and then for some reason the male teacher like had the hots for this younger blonde in one of the middle grades, and it was so obvious. It's like, oh my god, can't you see? Like, it's ridiculous what's going on here. And things would happen and they just cover it up. It's like, how am I supposed to respect these people? And I do decent in projects, but when it came to tests, I just could not focus, concentrate. I remember one time my mom sat with me in this third or fourth grade and helped me study. I'll never forget English. And then the next day, well, I took the test, and the next day, teacher's passing out the grades. I'm like, well, put mine down because I want to see it. And she said, "I'm actually going to put yours up because you got an A." I'm like, wow, it felt so good. But that was the only time my mom helped me study. Other than that, like, I really didn't know how. I just, so I think middle school, I was kind of getting a temper, and my mom had me come in and talk with like a psychiatrist or whatever. And he was actually pretty cool. I liked his vibe. But however, he put me on antidepressants. Not sure which one, but I didn't know any better. It's like, okay, he's having a temper, can't sit still. Didn't have a father figure around, I know he tried, but it wasn't a good father figure. So my mom, being a single mother, super stressed, two, young boys, working a job she didn't really like. I think she loved me and meant well, but she just didn't know how. Um, so instead of, well, now it's like, some doctors or even schools, and now we have this technology where we can do our own research and find out things. Shout out to Dr. Mark Hyman, the Ultra Mind Solution. When he was a doctor and then just like felt like crap. He's like, what's going on here? Oh, it's the stuff I'm putting in my body. So now if a patient comes to him, instead of putting him on a pill, he puts him on a diet plan. Exercise, eat healthy, meditate, do something you love, yoga, mindfulness. So didn't really know that back then. I mean, I'd run ragged during recess, and that was it. That was pretty much the only class I enjoyed, even though it wasn't a class. So they put me on this pill, and I guess it worked, and off and on. I'm better now to take it. Fast forward to 16, I got even worse, and she took me back in to talk with another psychiatrist. Like the one before was a male, like he was cool, like this vibe. The one when I was 16, brunette female, kind of attractive, a little masculine. So it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of hard, to focus, concentrate here. Put me on prescription pills again. Get through that. Fast forward like 17, 18. I realized I want to join the Air Force, so I eventually get off of it because I don't think I knew you could be on that, but I just didn't want to think there's something wrong with me psychologically. So, like a lot of people, I lied and got through that. And then, God, fast forward to like, what was I, 34, like early to almost mid 30s. I go back to school for the last time, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the VA and just talk with my psychiatrist and ask about Adderall because I heard about it. And I noticed some people can like focus on it. And well, now that I'm retired honorably from the Air Force National Guard, I can share some things I normally wouldn't share. And if you want to hear like the R version, like the really deep personal stuff, like conversations me and Kenny had, like I'll never forget, like was it last summer already? Go on live Zoom for a 30-minute beyond clarity, and then what do you know, 2 hours later Kenny and I are just freaking getting this really deep, like soul enhancing, inspiring conversation. But early 2021 spring break, one of my best friends at the time, I was taking a shower about to get out, and he's like excited, talking fast, here, drink this, like okay, whatever, drink it, okay, I'll drink it, whatever, what is it? He put an Adderall in there. And just like that one time, now I understand why peer pressure, they say like, don't do it once, like, well, once too many and 1,000 is not enough. So even like, and people, not everyone have addictive tendencies, but just that one time could change a person's life forever. So what do you know, that night I'm alert, I'm talkative, I can focus, and I can freaking drink all night like a champion and still like be alert and focused and dance and flirt with girls. And so it was spread out every now and then, but every time I go out, I'm like, I wonder if I can get one of those. So I was able to get prescribed when I got into school to concentrate, focus, small dosage. And then after taking it for a few months, I realized I needed it. I was dependent on it. So when I moved down to Florida, transferred to Florida, I had to transfer VAs. So even though my psychiatrist up in Milwaukee, approved of me having it, I had to do some tests down in Orlando, Florida, 4 different tests actually, to get reapproved. I'm like, oh my God, like all I pretty much had to do was just sit with this woman who, for being in healthcare, did not look healthy. I think do a piss test or blood draw, whatever, pass, and then I'm in. Down there, a few tests. I don't know if I had to like take a psych test, online test, obviously pee, urine. They did like some kind of heart test. And then come to realize my heart was kind of placed differently because I had to do 2 tests on it. And after getting a clarity session, she realized I had like heart trauma when I got shocked by 270 volts. I'll never forget when it happened. It feels like my freaking heart flew out of my chest. And the time that I was not able to renew my prescription down there, I was getting irritated. Like it was a couple months. I'm like, oh my God, come on. It was one of the busiest I've ever been because I was going to school full time online, renovating a club that was turned into a restaurant downtown Orlando. I can't think of the name right now, but it reminds me I go eat there when I get down there. And then apprenticing for a feature film based on a video game. So I was busy, and the foreman in charge of the restaurant renovation appreciated me being there working 3rd shift. So when he come in, he gave me a little motivation because he knew he slipped me an Adderall, and then what do you know, I was able to work all night. And once I got my prescription back, I noticed that I was starting to build a tolerance. I needed it. Like drill weekends. It was funny too. Like now I realize why I wasn't able to focus that well in classroom settings because so many people around. Like it's hard for me to focus and listen to the teacher, especially if it's something I'm not interested in, and especially if they're not like passionately um teaching it, sharing it. So then I got like other students around energies, and I'll sit there for an hour and not remember a damn thing the teacher said. And where was I going with that? So like drill weekends, a lot of energies going around, it's aka well, late level adult daycare. You're trying to cram like a month's worth of work into a weekend. And I'm in a in like starting to get in a leadership role. So I'm popping Adderall, and I'm starting to get like nervous and twitchy, and then I'm having a hard time being around people in public places. And there was a couple incidents that I recall. One of them was actually in Walmart where I was just like, I felt like people were watching me. It was so weird. And then another time I was actually I think I was in my shop, and I don't know if I was having like a light level panic attack or whatever, but my face was twitchy. And I remember looking at one of my younger airmen. He was kind of looking at me like with this weird look on his face. I'm like, what? And then looking at my one of my supervisors, and it's funny too, is like they think that you can't see them looking, but they're looking, they're like this, like I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So I did some research, and I come to find out Adderall, and I might get dinged or whatever for things that I say because I'm not going to put a filter on it, but it's like a light level um, meth, and I'm like, I hear just bad things about meth, and I'm like, wow, like why is this legal? Why is it prescribed? Do some more research. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. And I followed one gentleman who would share like real life stories on how he overcame different addictions. And um Adam, his first name's Adam, and I think he goes by Psyched Substances. If you'd like to learn about him, I can put it in my info here at the end of class or private message me. But he said when the way he weaned himself off of it is that he eventually was only taking it once or twice a week, which is like the recommended dose that you're only supposed to take. So I bring it up to my one of my doctors at the time, and he's like, "Yeah, it's like it oh something. Okay, you got serotonin, oxytocin, and what's the other chemical that makes you feel good, And the doctor mentioned one of those chemicals, and he's like, "Yeah, it makes you feel like interested or feel good when you're doing something you're not interested in. So let's say you're doing like your taxes or whatever, and you just feel good, you're interested in it." And this guy's a doctor, mind you. And then quick side story, he was getting a real estate investing, and he ended up like meeting some random dude at Home Depot, gave him money to like renovate his house, and the guy didn't show up. I'm like, "You're a doctor, you're supposed to be smart." So when I brought up the side effects to him, he was kind of gave me this confused look on his face, like, hmm? Well, apparently they like big farm or whatever get like some type of pay cut or whatever, and it is easier just to prescribe a patient a pill. Is my connection good? Kenny and Phoenix and audio, just give me a thumbs up if it is or isn't. And then I remember my friend, he was going through I think he was just going through some tough times because he was going for his doctorate, gained some weight, and he went in to talk with a doctor, and going over his options. And he asked, like, well, would working out and eating healthy helped? And the doctor's like, well, yeah, but most of my patients just ask for a pill because that's easier. And what do you know? After some time, he ended up improving his health a lot without a pill. So this I'd say this didn't happen to me overnight. Like the breaking point for me actually happened to me in a moment that I'm going to share a little bit later. I'll give you a little hint. MWA, M as in master. That was like pretty much like the feeling I felt in me where it's like, I don't need this anymore. So doing research, like, Dr. Mark Hyman, the Ultra Mind Solution, like I admit, just popping a pill is so much easier than working out, meditating, eating healthy, grounding, going for a walk. This, however, um, if you learn how to do that over a few years, the benefits, the side effects are so much better, like 100 times better than that pill you're popping. So it just takes time. You got to give it time. So it was a few years in the making. And another time, I oh shoot, I was okay prescribed Adderall, and then I think when I moved back home from Florida, October 2018, so humbling. Still in school, and then eventually getting into this intense leadership program and helping a good friend of mine slash mentor slash I consider a big brother now with his business. I was going through a lot of anxiety. So I asked one of my coaches, like, would it help if I took an antidepressant? And she said, off the record, yes. And I took that as like she was doing it. So I did. And then a couple years after that, I was up for a deployment. And the doctor was reviewing my profile. Is like, unfortunately, you can't deploy because you said you're depressed and you're on this. So I ended up like talking with my psychiatrist and kind of like speeding things up to get off my prescription so I could deploy because I want to serve. See, the thing is, when I'm overseas and serving and deployed, like focusing on one thing, it's a lot, but I'm not depressed, because it feels good. So she was cool about it. The doctor I was seeing here, who seemed like a transfer and definitely did not look healthy. And her nurse was nicer too, but she did not look healthy at all either. Um, I remember going in just for like a 1 year review or whatever follow up, and I told her like, I'm starting to cut back on my antidepressants because I'm going the natural way. And she's like, "What? What are you doing?" Okay, whatever. I'm gonna still do it. And then the next time I came in, oh, I tell you what. Now I understand why sometimes 22 veterans commit suicide each day. So a couple of times I went into the VA to get help, and some of the doctors or nurses, like I learned that eventually they just they reach a point where they just get sick of their job or the people, and I'm like, oh my god, like so I get it. So the second time I went in, I actually sprained my ankle at work, and I just wanted to go in and get checked out and get a waiver because I was supposed to run for PT that weekend, and I needed a signed waiver from a doctor, so I didn't have to run on a sprained ankle. I go in and she's like, "Okay, so you're this and that and that," and I told her like, "Well, this is the reason why," and she stopped me and she's like, "You don't need to tell me what you're doing or whatever," and I just okay. I didn't let react to her. I actually just did this, blah blah blah. Look at it. She wouldn't even look at it, and then she wouldn't even write it up. And then she just kind of sat there looking at me like, what are you gonna do? Or it so I looked at the nurse and I'm like, okay, I think we're done here. Go out the room. I tell the nurse, like, that's one reason why veterans do what they do. And I was about to drive an hour out of my way to go to another VA. And oh, okay. I was like, you know what? I'll figure it out. Which I did. I had my work, pretty much sign the safety report saying what happened. And where was I going with that? So it's like so-called, doctors with these receipts, years, professionals prescribing these pills on people that can be harmful. Apparently, like a while back, it was easy to get oxys if someone hurt themselves, which is like compared to heroin. And then now they're actually cracking down on that. But when I was picking up my dad's prescription, the doctor like stopped me and he's like, "You know what these things can do, right?" I'm like, "Yes, thank you for letting me know." I'm like, "Wow, good." And so I appreciated that because just one, it could really change your life. And kind of where I live, it gets cold up here and people just get depressed and bored. And my drug of choice past tense was alcohol, while other people's heroin, meth. because they get hurt, they get prescribed to this pill, oxys. I can't think of the name of it. And then they run out or whatever. It's too expensive. So they go to heroin. And it's like, oh my God, what happened? And, mine was Adderall, and it was a few years. I'm like, I can't freaking do this anymore. So the things I mentioned before: exercise, meditation, yoga, deep breathing, eating healthy, music, doing what you love, going for walks. The breaking point for me was the first online class I invested in from AZD. Besides his online live lecture every day, Love Spell and the recordings, and then eventually a beast camp, Jay Grudev, Captain Chris. He's like, hey, I got this new class out, and just when you hear it, monks with attitude, I'm like, W A. I'm like, oh yes, I'm in. Sold $97, and thinking like at first I was hesitant, and then he brought it up. He's like, you spent your money on dumber stuff. Like, yep, you got me invested. Watched it, and the thing is, it's like I would purchase something and only watch it once. And I think Brian Casella checked in, and he's like, I watched it 4 times now. I'm like, oh, that's right, because the average person supposedly it takes them like 10 to 15 times reading something or listening to it before they really retain it. So watching it a few times, and there's one thing he said was about attitude. So like a prisoner in prison or a monk in minimalist life, instead of like fighting their living situation or not liking it, they actually choose it. They say they choose because they change their attitude of how they react or feel about it. So let's say a prisoner in solitary confinement or locked up in a cell with a cellmate and poor living conditions. Instead of complaining about it or not appreciating it or fighting it, he would actually say, I choose this small cell. I choose this roommate. I choose this low grade bed. I choose this not so healthy food. I choose this lifestyle. And same with the monk, how he lives. So I was just thinking, and I felt something in me. I felt things before, but this was just like a naturally transformation inside of me. I'm like, wow. And then that's where I realized I do not have to take a pill to make myself feel good. And what do you know? A couple years in the making, everything I was doing, boom. And you know what? It's like sometimes the temptation comes in, and then I remember like, no, you remember what you've been through, remember what you said, and sure enough, you give yourself a clearing, and here we are. Okay, so anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to say something or put it in the chat. If not, I'll think of something else I can add. If not, definitely be saving it for part 2 next time.
No, I just want to thank you, Tony, for speaking. You sound good, brother.
I was muted. Sorry. Go ahead. What's that, Kenny?
I just want to thank you for spending the time with us, and you sound good. Thank you for your story.
Oh, and the 2 guys that you see right now are the ones why I kept showing up. This has been a couple years in the making, and I'm double checking the YouTube live here real quick. Kenny was like one of the first OGs that was following me and liking me on Instagram. And then Phoenix reaches out to me about like, oh yeah, Kickstart Cash, business line of credit overseas. Talking with him, it's like, okay, well, you're IMC Nation, I'll talk with you. And then before I know, we're on freaking hours of conversations, and I'm here like wanting to focus on work, but I'm like, wait a minute, this like I'm feeling a certain way, the stories he's sharing with me, and perhaps he's feeling motivated or inspired because he can openly and freely express and share himself with me. And I'm like, we're gonna do a movie based on this guy, point blank. And here we are, and hopefully I'm inspired. Well, I know I'm inspiring them to do the same, because speaking, putting yourself out there, sharing your setbacks and stuff. It's quite intimidating at first, especially when you see the recording button going, and especially when you're on IMC TV. It's like, oh my god, all right, this is what AZD wants us to do. I'll never forget the first Beast Camp I went to. I'm going to share the PG-13 version. I was a little overwhelmed Saturday and I ended up leaving the room, just sitting in the kitchen like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? You know, because AZD was speaking and I was feeling things I've never felt before. And of all the people that come in the kitchen was AZD. And I'm sitting there like, and he's like, is everything all right? And I didn't know, I was actually kind of embarrassed. And I just looked at him. I'm like, dude, thank you for everything that you do. And his reply was, yep. And he left the room. And I took that as he doesn't want me to thank him. He wants me to do what he's doing. And like I say before, someone out there needs to hear your story from you. So stop holding yourself back and keep showing up. Shout out to Mr. Neil Kerr on Instagram. I got a feeling he's soon going to be having his own show. You got something to say, Kenny?
I've got something to say.
Oh, Phoenix. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, listening to you talk and reflecting back to when we first met, there has been a development, definitely. And just between the four of us sharing our thoughts and successes and downfalls and doing shadow work and all the work we do with the beasting process and that, just the four of us have been quite, I have to hold back my wording here, quite a powerful force within itself. And just a bit of reflection on myself. I just taught my first yoga session again. And because we're transitioning from practice to teaching. And that's essentially what like AZD wants to, for us to build our own brotherhoods and teaching and spreading, this good feeling that we get from this process.
With our powers combined. And I tell you what, I was going to teach a class called Beyond Clarity. Was it last summer, a couple summers ago? And I didn't have enough students to have AZD speak after me. And, oh, so close. So like I went into self-sabotage / self-destruct mode, which I talked about last night Beyond Clarity. And okay, yeah, sure enough. Like, okay, well, I guess that's not going to happen. And several classes after that, he calls me and Gavin now because we had a thing in common at the time. And I'm like, okay, well, what can we do to help people? And like, I reached out to him. I'm like, you know what? If I can get a few guys with me to get our like our investment in, and then what we have to share to help others, we could have AZD speak after us. And sure enough, you're looking at it. And Gavin Hairgrove, shout out to him. He's putting his focus in personal training, helping men, especially in addiction recovery. So Phoenix recruited Trent Lara, and it just keeps getting better. So if there's nothing else, questions or comments, I'm going to end it, and then I'll see you in part 2. And if we can change our time for next Saturday for later time in the day, get ready for Sir Kenny Simmons.
Like on that note, we'll say 4:20 my time works perfectly for me. And if anyone didn't know, I'm in New Zealand. So.
Well, any time here, and Phoenix, it's funny because Phoenix, I think, is a day ahead of us. It's 4:20 all day at Phoenix's what do you call it?
What
layer.
do you call it?
Phoenix's layer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Domain.
Anything else?
No. Thank you very much. It was a great show, and looking forward to next week and the great Kenny Simmons. Which, by the way, if anyone didn't know, this man is a machine when it comes to working out. So
yes, follow him for workouts. He actually has his own Telegram group, and yeah, keep showing up. I'm gonna hit stop. I gotta end the live on YouTube.